Hello everyone, and welcome to the 9th day of the online edition of the London Kurdish Film Festival. My name is Kaveh Abbasian, and I am here with the director of Shouted from the Rooftop, Beri Shalmashi, who is with us from Amsterdam, but she's actually originally from Rojalat, or the East Kurdistan. Today we watched 6 films under the theme of war on screen. And Beri's film, Shouted from the Rooftop, also deals with the issue of war. It is about a lover, Farhad, and his beloved, Shirin, who seems to be joining a struggle, a revolution, and the aftermath of that situation. Well, hopefully most of you have seen the film already, and I understand that most of our audience already know Beri or know something about her. But I would like to ask this opportunity, Beri, to ask you to explain a little bit, introduce a little bit yourself from your own words, so that we get to know you better. A little bit about your previous films, your past, your career, and your previous involvement with the London Kurdish Film Festival.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for this time, and I hope a lot of people will support the festival as well. I know how hard you guys have worked on this. I've known the London Kurdish Film Festival for a long time, from the early days, I think. And for filmmakers like me, it has always provided a platform to connect with my colleagues, Kurdish colleagues from across the world. We have a very special connection and community. I think the first time I was there might have been, I don't know, maybe 2005 or 6. And I've kept on going back. It's very comfortable to be there from home this year. And I love the short program that you guys have put together. Who am I? I don't know. I'm so many different things. And I was born in Paris. Then my parents took me with them to the mountains of Kurdistan because they were revolutionaries back then fighting the Iranian regime. Just recently, I released an interactive documentary, Big Village, that's about that era. When I was 2, we fled to the Netherlands, raised here, went to film school here in Amsterdam, did my master's here, and then I went everywhere, Los Angeles, Cairo, and then finally Holir, southern Kurdistan, Bashur for 5 years until 2016. That's when I landed back in the Netherlands. But ever since, I've just been going back and forth. I've been teaching in Kurdistan at the film department of Salahuddin. I'm an advisor to the film fund here. I teach my own class at the Sandberg Institute. And in between all of that, I'm trying to work on my next film. So I guess that's me, if it makes any sense.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Beri. So let's talk more in focus about the film that we just watched. For me, it was the 3rd time I was watching this film. And what a beautiful, strong film. Both emotionally and visually, I think. Coming from that region, coming from the Middle East, I think I can tell why you chose the names Shirin and Farhad, or at least I know the literary and historical context and background of it. But I would like to know why specifically, if there is such thing, and also if you can explain a little bit for the audience, people who have watched this film, why did you decide to choose Shirin and Farhad specifically?
Okay, so the film is 7 minutes, but what I wanted and what I needed was to put so much in it that it feels like it already starts before the film starts, and it doesn't end when the credits come. So I've used as much layers as I can to kind of already plant seeds for the story in your head. So by choosing the name Shireen and Fahad would be like the Western equivalent would be if you named them Romeo and Juliet, although I don't like comparing these stories, but it gives you some sort of reference. Anyone from the Middle East, whether you're really familiar with the actual story of Shireen and Farhad or you've just heard of it, it kind of planted the seed of this is a love story. I don't know much of the real story either. Of course, now I do after researching it, but before this film, it was just a given to me. It's one of the big love stories from the region, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by my knowledge, it was actually the other way around in the original, where Shireen waits for Farhat. So during the time of developing this short story, Kurdish girls and women were on the news everywhere as these fighters that came out of nowhere fighting against ISIS in those days up till now. But for Kurds, for people like myself and my family, coming from a family where my mother was wearing those same clothes fighting the Iranian regime 35 years ago, I figured, hey, this is not a new thing, and it's not a thing of only now. We have to kind of make it our own again and show them that we've been losing our girls and women to different struggles for decades, if not longer. So she had to leave in this love story. And yeah, I guess that reference kind of gives you a step ahead, and you know what's at stake. Two people who love each other and hoping to see each other again.
Yeah, I was actually exactly thinking of what you mentioned, that in the story, Shirin is the passive one, and Farhad is the one who carves the whole mountain to get her. Unfortunately, I don't. If I remember, he doesn't eventually get her, but he is the active one. But while in your film, he is the almost passive observer of what's taking place, and she is the active force. And I really like this play that you did with the history of these two terms and the literature and the poetry of it. So where is the city that this is based in? And it's also quite important because the clothes that they are wearing, the fighters, the male fighters who at the end are coming, and also the girl Shirin, and maybe they don't look like the clothes that we see usually the fighters are wearing in other parts of Kurdistan. So where is that city? And do you also specifically talk about this film is specifically talking about one incident, or is it more general? Are you trying to touch on different struggles?
Well, definitely the last thing you mentioned. I released the film a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, when everyone was talking about the struggle against Daesh, against ISIS. So for a lot of people, especially Western audiences, that's what it refers to. But your question is really valid because it's not. It's one of the options that it refers to. I made it in a way that it kind of feels like now, but kind of feels timeless as well, because I wanted to refer to the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, etc. And it can be any part of Kurdistan as well, in any era. It could be any movement that Shireen is part of. So yeah, it's whatever people feel connected to, maybe, when Kurdish audiences watch it. That's also why I chose the Kermanji dialect, because it's spoken in all 4 parts of Kurdistan. Yeah, so for me, it could be the Kurdish struggle in Iran. It could be within Turkey today. It could be Syria 5 years ago. It could be Iraqi Kurdistan, southern Kurdistan, Bashur 15 years ago. Anything you want or anything you see in it, it's true.
Yeah. Okay. So this city that we see gradually kind of becoming more like a war-torn cities. At some parts of it we see towards the beginning of the film they look fine, and then towards the end of the film they look kind of destroyed. Where is this city? So what is the location of the shoot, and also how much of what we see is of the smoke or the destroyed buildings? How much of them are real and how much of them are CGI?
I like this question because it's nice to deconstruct your own fake reality that you create in a film. We filmed in Holer in Erbil, nearby the citadel, which is maybe 6,000 to 8,000 years old originally. And there's not many old neighborhoods left in Holer, except for the area we filmed, which is the old Jewish quarter in downtown Erbil. I hope it's still there because the maintenance wasn't that good when we were filming. What we did is we tried to find a romantic location that kind of suits the story, like with a nice balcony and such, and on a rooftop, obviously. And there had to be a nice house across Ferhat's house for him to fall in love with the girl across the street on another rooftop, perhaps. That's how I think they met. So like we had to find all these things. There weren't many blocks, but the house we filmed from was an empty warehouse. And Shireen's house was inhabited by refugees, Arab refugees who were there because they had to flee from ISIS. So we had to ask them, obviously, can we film on your rooftop at 4 a.m. in the morning and such? When it comes to the deconstruction, we've, of course, it's all low budget, although a lot of sponsors, people have contributed. Luckily, there was a post-production company, Storm, here in Amsterdam, who facilitated the visual effects. So they sponsored a couple of effects. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can't fix the whole movie. So we had the rule that I could pick 3 moments in the film that they would fix for it to make it look like everything is falling apart. In the beginning of the story, everything is kind of okay, but it develops to becoming unlivable for the audience to question why Ferhat is staying. So what we did is we picked 3 moments. There's like a bomb in the distance with like some fire in the beginning. There's bigger destruction later on. And there's actually a layer of war footage, photos on top of the actual roofs that you see. So it's a combination of some areas in Rojava and the actual film location in Holer that you see. And then towards the end, we created a lot of mess in the street that you see when you see the car when the family is leaving. That's just us throwing bricks on the street and making it a dusty, broken mess. And we've just added the fire that comes out of the house. So if there's any young filmmakers watching us, I'd advise you, anything you can do on set, do it on set, because it's real, it's free, and it saves post-production so much headache, and they'll be working on shades and shapes and everything to make it look realistic. So if you can do it for real, do it for real. But those are the 3 moments that we added later.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it works quite well with those, even just 3 moments. You manage to make the film look the way you want it to look. One thing I really liked about your film was the whole culture of rooftops, falling in love and rooftop life and stories and everything, which I remember very well from back in the day when I was living in Iran. We would sleep on the rooftop, we would play on the rooftop, boys and girls or just friends would meet on the rooftop, from this rooftop to the other side of the street, just whistling or shaking hand or throwing letters to each other. It was just a whole culture. But then at least where I am, in Britain, this is not very much the case, because the rooftops, first of all, are like this. You can't really stand on top of them. So much rain. And so that whole culture doesn't exist here. So I was wondering, for the non-Middle Eastern audience who are not familiar with the whole rooftop culture, how do they relate to this film, and how do you understand their reaction?
Well, maybe they can relate to it now, because we had a couple of hot days last week, and everyone wanted to sleep outside. Maybe now they get it. I think traditional houses in the region are not just, if you're lucky enough, downstairs and then the first floor. It's also the rooftop. It counts as definitely as a floor in the house, where in summer it's where you live at night, and in many regions it's too hot, right, to stay inside, so it's better to be on the roof. For audiences that are not familiar with that, I've noticed they like the romanticness of it. So even though you can't do it here or in the UK, they do get it. But you will have all these connotations that are just within your DNA, within your own experiences, that they will not see, that they will not have. You might, without me telling you, understand that they probably fell in love looking at each other from across the roofs. But maybe a person who lives in a country that's too humid to sleep outside will not get that. So every audience gets a different thing. And I like that there's all these gifts for people who can relate to it on that level.
Yeah. What would you say was your main challenge in making this film? Also, please do reflect on how did the authorities deal with this? Were they accommodating? Did they help you? And just generally, any challenges and obstacles that you?
I tried to write a film that was as independent as possible, but still had a feeling that you're actually there in the middle of everything. That's why from the writing on, I restricted it to one location, because it can be extremely difficult to find several locations and manage all of that if you don't have a professional, like a big budget to just pay everyone to listen to you, basically. So that helped. But of course, whatever you do, you need permission. So I must say, we got there quite late. So just a few days before shooting, we arranged the permission and everything. There's funny stories about that I'll skip. Except for one funny story, sad for other people maybe. We filmed in summer during Ramadan. So everyone was trying to fast and get home before sunset. Sunset. And obviously, making a short film, you want to take advantage of golden hour constantly. So we would film early morning during sunrise, and then in the afternoon during sunset. I wouldn't film during the day, because why would I? Which also means we would block that street off in the middle of the city with 1 million people. We were blocking one of those streets in order to film the scenes where they pass, where her comrades knock on the parents' door, etc. So there were a lot of angry people waiting at the beginning. Angry people. And then we would open the road again for them to go home. So one of the funny difficulties was that, but we had a lot of issues. There's things that I wanted to be in the film that are not in there because it was impossible to arrange. But I think other than that, because we had somewhat control over our arena of our location, the problems were okay. So we had brought good actors with us. We were very lucky with good actors for the smaller roles, local actors. We had a solid crew, a combination of people from abroad and people from Kurdistan. And that's it. We were a fixed team, and that's what we used. I think that's especially for short films or films with not a huge budget, like protect yourself and create the right circumstances to work in.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question from the audience. One is asking okay, I'm trying to read properly. Who leaves turns into someone who wants to return. Who leaves turns into someone who wants to return. Hope I quoted it right.
Yes.
It is so true. But wouldn't you agree that leaving is often the only way to survive physically? And isn't it worth it?
Definitely. And I make Farhad say that who leaves turns into someone who wants to return, to amplify exactly that. I want people to understand, people who did not have to leave home, to understand you don't just pack your stuff and go. It's not a happy situation. So by making it so odd and so painful that he's actually staying, I hope certain audiences will be like, oh, Farhad, why don't you just leave and build a life and go to safety? Everyone else is gone. So by making it almost illogical for him to stay, that's how I want to show that it's not like there's another option. You actually have to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope it contradicts with what he's saying, because he's more stubborn. But if we zoom out at the end and you see he's the only one, maybe it's not a strange thing that everyone else left, because there is nothing to stay for.
Yeah, I understand. So it looks like we are reaching the end of our time. So I'm going to open the last question for you to share with us. So what's going to happen to this film from here onwards? Is it being shown anywhere else? And also tell us a little bit about your future projects, and perhaps I know you have already given some advice which were very useful, but any other advice for independent filmmakers from Kurdistan?
This film has traveled quite well to medium festivals across the world, and especially here in the Netherlands, obviously, where I have the best network. It's been in movie theaters as a short film before the feature film, in 12 movie theaters for I think a month or so, which was really nice. A lot of nice festivals and outdoor screenings, TV, national TV over here, and special sessions, and the same goes for Kurdistan, and a couple of diaspora locations, I'd say. And what I really like about the impact of this film is that people are still reaching out. They find it somewhere on the internet and quote from it or make their own like fan montage of it. And normally I'd be like, keep the film as it is, but I like how it's kept alive. And I hope it stays like that it pops up every now and then, because it's small, it's from 2 years ago, but it's timeless. So I hope people continue finding it and using it in whatever context applies to them. I just, as I mentioned, released Big Village, which is an interactive. People can walk into on bigvillagestory.com, and I'm currently working on the development of 2 future films, of which hopefully one of them will get to shoot in spring, but it's not up to any of us to know if that's going to happen in the current world. So yeah, I'm writing and slowly starting pre-production. A tip for young filmmakers is find each other, find my generation, reach out with your questions. Never wait on others to help you in whatever stage of your development of your career you are. Just go for it. Use your mobile phone, use your friends, all the obvious feedback. But also, we were speaking about this in another panel yesterday. Just focus on your script, especially now with everyone going in and out of lockdown constantly. There's nothing that can stop you from writing. So use pen and paper or your computer and focus on a construction for your story that then makes everything else in the process easier. I think there's a lot of mistakes in Shouted from the Rooftops, but I think the reason it works for so many people is because I worked on the construction first. And that saves you time on set, in post-production, because you have already got the foundation you're building on. And it's so fun to read scripts with your friends and to let them have feedback on your story and have feedback on theirs. Send it to other people. So that would be my advice.
Fantastic. And thank you so much. And we hope to see your future films here physically on a big screen in London Kurdish Film Festival.
I can't wait.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for everyone who's tuned in to watch this Q&A. Don't go anywhere, and we will have another Q&A immediately after this one. And after that, a masterclass with Dr. William Brown on zero budget filmmaking. Stay tuned.
به کیف خوشی تماشا بکنید.